There are moments in life that arrive without warning, shattering the fragile veneer of the ordinary. They are intrusions from a world that is not supposed to exist in quiet suburban towns. Moments so strange and out of place they feel like a tear in the fabric of reality. For most people, these moments are fleeting, a strange sound in the night, a shadow seen from the corner of the eye. But for one man, on one quiet morning, the impossible would not just appear. It would land in his front yard, bringing with it a mystery tied to secrets, sacrifice, and a forgotten chapter of military history. This is the story of how the arrival of a single, majestic creature set in motion a chain of events that would unravel a conspiracy and lead to a desperate race against time. Our story begins in Greenwillow, a small, sleepy town where the rhythm of life was measured and predictable. It was a place of manicured lawns, quiet streets, and a comforting sense of normalcy where the most exciting event of the week might be the farmer's market on Saturday. The protagonist of our story, Jasper, fit perfectly into this tranquil landscape. A retired archivist in his late 60s, he cherished the peace and routine of his life. His days were spent tending to his garden, reading history books on his porch, and enjoying the quiet solitude of the home he had lived in for over 30 years. He was an observant man, one who noticed the subtle changes of the seasons and the habits of the local wildlife, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see. On this particular morning, as he stepped outside to retrieve his newspaper, he stopped cold. The world seemed to fall silent. There, standing with an almost regal stillness in the center of his lawn, was a bald eagle. It wasn't just an eagle. It was an icon, a creature of myth and legend brought to life. Jasper had only ever seen them in documentaries or photographs where their scale was impossible to truly appreciate. Here, in his own yard, its presence was overwhelming. It stood nearly 3 feet tall, its wingspan, even when folded, hinting at an immense power. Its gaze was sharp and intelligent, its iconic white head turning slowly as it surveyed its surroundings with an unnerving calm. This was not the behavior of a lost or frantic animal. It stood with a sense of purpose, as if it had chosen this exact spot for a specific reason. The sight was so incongruous, so profoundly out of place in the suburban landscape of Greenwillow, that for a moment Jasper questioned if he was still dreaming. A mix of awe and a primal sense of caution bubbled up inside him. He knew he was witnessing something he would likely never see again. Slowly, carefully, he began to move closer, his slippers making no sound on the damp grass. He wanted to understand. He felt an inexplicable pull, a need to know why this magnificent emissary from the wild had chosen his home. The eagle watched his approach, its bright yellow eyes tracking his every move, but it did not flinch. It remained perfectly still, a living statue of feathered authority. As he drew nearer, his awe began to give way to a creeping sense of dread. He noticed that the eagle was not just standing on the lawn, it was standing over something. A dark shape was partially obscured by its massive talons. Jasper's heart began to pound in his chest. Trying not to make any sudden movements that might startle the bird, he crept forward, his eyes locked on the object on the ground. The eagle shifted its weight and flapped its powerful wings once, a soft whoosh of air that felt like a warning. It let out a single, sharp cry, but it did not fly away. It stood its ground. It was then that Jasper's eyes finally focused on the object. A glint of metal caught the morning light. It was a small, silver-colored tag attached to a leather cord, clutched in the eagle's talons. But it was what was next to the tag that made a wave of ice-cold fear sweep through him. A dark, reddish-brown stain was seeping into the grass around it. Blood. His stomach dropped. The scene was no longer one of natural wonder. It was now one of profound mystery and potential tragedy. His mind raced with terrible possibilities. Whose tag was it? And where had the blood come from? He knew, with absolute certainty, that he needed to call for help immediately. He patted his pockets in a rising panic, his hand searching for his phone. It wasn't there. "Dang it!" he muttered, his breath catching in his throat. He had left it inside, on the kitchen counter. He was now faced with a terrible dilemma. If he went back inside, the eagle might finally take flight, taking the only clue with it. But if he stayed, he was just a helpless observer. He had to act fast. Making a decision, Jasper began to back away, his movements slow and deliberate, his eyes never leaving the eagle. "Please stay put," he whispered, as if the bird could understand him. He reached the front door, his hand fumbling for the knob. As he slipped inside, Out of the eagle's line of sight, he broke into a frantic run. He snatched the phone from the kitchen counter, his fingers already dialing 911 as the dispatcher's voice came on the line. An idea, born of desperation, formed in his mind. "This is going to sound strange," Jasper said. His voice rushed as he moved towards the refrigerator. "But there's a giant eagle in my front yard, and I think it's carrying something important." While he quickly explained the situation with the tag and the blood, he pulled a container of raw chicken from a shelf. The dispatcher, her voice calm and professional, gave him clear instructions. Maintain a safe distance, and she would alert responding officers to approach without sirens to avoid startling the bird. Jasper agreed, ended the call, and headed back to the door, his heart pounding. He now had a new mission, to keep the eagle in his yard until help could arrive. He stepped back outside, phone now in his pocket, and tore open the package of chicken. The eagle's sharp eyes immediately locked onto the movement. It shifted its weight, its focus now entirely on him. Jasper took a small piece of chicken and tossed it gently onto the lawn, about 10 feet from the bird. The eagle flinched, its wings spreading wide in a momentary display of defensive power. Jasper's stomach dropped. He thought he had scared it off. But after a tense moment, the eagle looked down, hopped forward, and deftly snatched the piece of meat with its beak, swallowing it in a single motion. It then looked back at Jasper, its gaze intense and expectant. It wanted more. A fragile, unspoken negotiation was now underway. Over the next several minutes, Jasper carefully tossed more pieces of chicken, creating a trail of food to keep the eagle occupied but not fully sated. The bird remained, cautiously moving from one piece to the next, but its attention was always divided between the food and the man who was providing it. The tense standoff drew attention. A few neighbors, their morning routines interrupted by the strange sight, began to peek through their windows. Soon, a small, quiet crowd had gathered at the edge of Jasper's property, whispering and pointing, their cell phones raised to capture the incredible scene. The silent arrival of a police car signaled a new phase of the unfolding drama. 2 officers stepped out, their movements slow and deliberate as they assessed the situation. Officer Ramirez approached Jasper, his voice low and steady. "That's quite the guest you've got there," he said with a nod. Jasper quickly recounted the morning's events, pointing to the tag still visible near the eagle's feet. The officers understood the gravity of the situation immediately. While one officer began discreetly managing the growing crowd of onlookers, Ramirez stayed with Jasper. "Just keep doing what you're doing," he advised. "Animal control is on the way." For what felt like an eternity, Jasper and the officers maintained their vigil, a strange tableau of man, beast, and law enforcement, all centered around a single, mysterious piece of metal on the lawn. The arrival of the animal control van brought a new level of professional calm to the scene. The lead officer, a confident woman named Sarah, approached Jasper with a reassuring smile. "We've got this," she said, her team quietly preparing their equipment in the background. "It seems healthy, just stressed," she noted, her expert eyes scanning the bird's posture. "Keep feeding it. You're doing great work." With the team moving into position, the eagle grew uneasy again, letting out a sharp cry that made the crowd gasp. Jasper quickly tossed a larger piece of chicken, murmuring quiet reassurances. After a tense pause, the bird relaxed just enough. In that moment, Sarah gave the signal. In one swift, practiced motion, a large net was thrown over the eagle. It screeched in protest, but the team was fast, securing its wings and legs before it could injure itself. The crowd broke into spontaneous applause. As the team prepared the eagle for transport, Sarah knelt down to examine the object that had started it all. She gently lifted the eagle's leg, her brow furrowing as she saw the tag clearly for the first time. "What do we have here?" she muttered to herself. She carefully worked the old leather cord free from the eagle's talons. As she held it up to the light, the hushed crowd fell silent. It wasn't just a tag. It was a military-style dog tag. The mood on the lawn shifted instantly. The spectacle of a captured eagle was replaced by the somber gravity of the small, metallic object now resting in Sarah's gloved hand. The officers gathered closer, their expressions serious. It was undeniably a military dog tag, aged and worn, but its purpose was unmistakable. Jasper stepped forward, his voice low. "That's why I called," he explained. "When I saw the blood, I thought it might have come from someone who was hurt." Sarah looked from the tag to Jasper, her professional demeanor softening with a newfound respect for his intuition. "You absolutely did the right thing," she said firmly. An officer turned the tag over in his hand, examining the faint stamped letters. "This could be part of something much bigger," he added quietly. The decision was made to treat the tag as a potential piece of evidence in a missing person case. It was carefully sealed in an evidence bag, and Sarah assured Jasper they would run the name and service number through every available database and keep him updated. As the animal control van drove away, carrying the silent, majestic bird, Jasper was left standing on his lawn, the silence of the now empty yard feeling heavier than before. The immediate crisis was over, but the true mystery had just begun. While the official investigation would move at its own deliberate pace, Jasper found himself consumed by an obsessive need for answers. That afternoon, he sat at his computer. The image of the eagle and the tag burned into his mind. He began to search, typing in every combination of words he could conjure. Eagle-carrying dog tag, military animal programs, trained birds of prey. The initial results were a flood of folklore and fiction, but he persisted, digging deeper, following obscure links into forgotten corners of the internet. It was on a small enthusiast forum for military history that he first saw the phrase, Operation Skywatch. There was no official article, just whispers and speculation, fragments of stories about a clandestine, Cold War-era program that sought to use eagles for aerial surveillance. Most people dismissed it as a conspiracy theory, but for Jasper, who had seen the eagle with his own eyes, it felt chillingly plausible. The next morning, armed with this single tantalizing phrase, Jasper went to the public library. He explained his strange quest to a librarian who, intrigued rather than dismissive, directed him toward the declassified government archives available on microfilm. For hours, he scrolled through reels of faded, yellowed documents, his eyes straining against the glowing screen. And then he found it. A series of heavily redacted reports from the 1970s, all filed under the project title, Operation Skywatch. His heart pounded in his chest. It was real. The documents described, in dry, technical language, the program's objective: to train bald eagles. With their superior eyesight and ability to soar unnoticed over remote terrain as living reconnaissance drones, they were fitted with lightweight camera equipment and trained to fly specific routes over designated targets. The program had shown remarkable initial success, but was ultimately shut down due to a combination of budget cuts, the rise of new satellite technology, and, as some reports hinted, internal arguments over the ethics of the program. The documents confirmed the what, but not the who or the why now. Jasper knew his research had hit a wall. He needed to talk to someone who had been on the inside. Taking a considerable risk, he drove to a nearby military base. After a lengthy and skeptical interrogation with the gate guards, his sheer persistence and the photograph of the dog tag finally earned him a meeting with an older officer, Captain Reynolds. Reynolds, a man on the cusp of retirement, listened to Jasper's story with a patient, knowing look. "Operation Skywatch," he said, a faint smile on his face. "It's been years since I've heard that name. A ghost from another time." Intrigued by the mystery, Reynolds agreed to help. He led Jasper to the base's deep archives, a secure room filled with the paper-logged history of forgotten operations. Together, they searched for hours until Reynolds pulled out a single, thick folder. "Here we go," he said. The file belonged to a specific eagle, one of the program's most prized assets. Its name was Thunder. The file was a biography of a warrior. It detailed Thunder's incredible training, his ability to respond to over 50 commands, and his uncanny homing instinct. He was not just an animal, he had been a trusted partner to his handlers, but it was the final entry in the file that made both men fall silent. During a final, high-altitude training exercise over a remote forest region decades ago, Thunder had vanished. A sudden, violent storm had moved in, and in the chaos, all contact was lost. He was presumed dead, a decorated soldier lost in the line of duty. Now, after all these years, he had reappeared in Jasper's yard. The mystery of the eagle's identity was solved, but it only deepened the more urgent question, why had he returned now? This tag, Reynolds said, looking again at the photo on Jasper's phone, was not the one he was issued. This one is different, newer. The implication was clear. Thunder hadn't just been surviving in the wild. Someone had found him. Someone had been with him. The mission report pinpointed the location where Thunder had last been seen, a vast, dense national forest not a 2-hour drive from Greenwillow. Jasper and Captain Reynolds knew what they had to do. This was no longer just a historical curiosity. It felt like an active situation. They drove to the edge of the forest, a map of the old training grounds in hand, and began to hike into the wilderness. For hours, they walked through the thick, silent woods, following the coordinates from the old report. Deeper in, far from any marked trail, they found it, an old run-down cabin nearly swallowed by the forest that had once served as a training observation post. The door creaked open on rusted hinges. Inside, the cabin was dusty and abandoned, but there were signs of recent occupation: a new sleeping bag, empty food cans, and a stack of papers on a small table. As Jasper sorted through the papers, he realized they were recent journal entries. They detailed the lonely life of an old man, filled with memories of his time in the military and his profound connection to an eagle named Thunder. The final entries were alarming. The man wrote of a fall, a badly injured leg, and his dwindling supplies. The last page was a hastily scrawled note: "Thunder knows what to do. He will bring help." It was then that everything clicked into place. The eagle's original handler, now an old man, had been living out his final years in seclusion near the place where he had lost his greatest partner. After suffering a debilitating injury, he had, in a final act of desperation and faith, attached his own dog tag to Thunder and released him, praying the eagle's legendary homing instinct would guide him toward people. The blood on the tag had been his own. Without wasting a second, Reynolds was on his satellite phone, relaying their coordinates and the situation to emergency services. Within the hour, the sound of a helicopter's rotors thundered over the forest canopy. A search and rescue team was lowered, and they found the handler near the cabin, weak and dehydrated, but alive. As he was being airlifted to safety, his first question was a whispered, "Thunder, did he make it?" Jasper, watching from below, felt a profound sense of closure. The eagle's impossible journey had not been random. It was a mission, a final, desperate flight to save the life of the man he had never forgotten. The story of the rescue became a local legend. Jasper was hailed as a hero, but he knew the true hero had been the eagle. Thunder, after being treated by veterinarians, was retired to a specialized sanctuary where Jasper and Captain Reynolds would often visit. The bond between the three of them, the quiet archivist, the veteran captain, and the warrior eagle, was a testament to a story that had refused to be forgotten, a story of loyalty that had transcended time, distance, and even the boundary between man and beast.